Ukraine and Russia provide almost a third of the world's wheat, so the war there risks driving up prices, of course, around the world. Developing nations are likely to be hardest hit, increasing the risk of famine. Hanna Saarinen is EU Food Policy Advisor for Oxfam International. She joins me now from Brussels. Hanna, thanks very much indeed for joining us. That little snapshot of Lebanon is just one example of the many layers of this problem. We've got the pandemic, of course, as well. Is it the case that the war in Ukraine is just another kick to an already really delicate food system?
Thank you for the invitation. Indeed, the situation is as you described. Already before, the food systems across the globe were in a fragile situation. There were several hunger hotspots across the world. Globally, there are more than 800 million people suffering from food insecurity. Out of those, more than 160 million people are in acute hunger. The crisis in Ukraine is indeed coming on top of the existing vulnerabilities and the existing humanitarian crisis. There are several hunger hotspots, for example, in the East African region and in the Middle East, who are highly dependent on wheat imports from Ukraine and Russia. And the crisis is going to be yet another hit on these fragile situations.
Whenever we talk about Russia and Ukraine, we talk about cooking oil and wheat particularly. Is this principally about wheat and oil? Are these two or three ingredients the key to feeding the planet?
They are among the key food commodities. Wheat is important in this case because Ukraine and Russia are such big players in the wheat export markets, especially towards the low-income countries. So Ukraine holds a share of about 10%. It is the third largest exporter of wheat globally, Russia being the largest. What's important to note is that there are several low-income countries that are directly dependent on the wheat imports from these two countries on their food security. So there are 14 low-income countries who actually directly depend on their food security on the wheat imports from Ukraine and Russia.
I mean, we know that Egypt, for example, gets almost all its wheat, even though it has a local harvest itself, but pretty much all its wheat from Ukraine, so we'll be directly affected. But is there no way the planet or the world economies can adjust, find these crops elsewhere, farm them elsewhere, change things around, or are we completely at the mercy of the existing geography?
What we are facing, it's more a political failure. So, in fact, the world is producing enough food for everybody already as of today. And even without the imports from Ukraine and Russia, there would be other ways to feed the people. So the problem, it is really a political failure. There are several shocks that the food system has faced. The COVID pandemic was one. This Ukraine crisis is coming on top. But these external shocks, they are actually just highlighting how fragile the current food system is and how much these hunger hotspots are relying for their food security on a fragile system. So there's actually a very high need to choose the transition towards more resilient food systems, both in terms of social resilience as well as environmental resilience. And actually the food systems should be transformed so that people's food security would be more reliant on local food systems, not on the global systems that is so vulnerable and is currently, for example, in a lot of turmoil.
I mean, it's long been said that famine is a political crime rather than a crime of food supply per se. But is there not some way, when we have catastrophes like this, why is the politics so hard? Is there not some way that a united effort on the part of different governments, on different organizations around the world, can break the blockages in this food supply chain?
So there is a need for more political will. Right now, here in the immediate term, there is a need to respond to the humanitarian crisis and provide food assistance for the people in need. But looking at the longer term, we do need to transform the food system and ensure that it is more resilient against these shocks. And from where that starts, it could be based on more local production, based on smallholder production, family farming, go back to the basics and just build resilience from the local communities.
Hanna Saarinen, thanks very much indeed for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.